In the eyes of the world, she was a queen, dressed in silks, crowned in gold, and honored as the mother of the realm. But behind the walls of her palace bedroom, she was nothing more than a prop in her husband's perverse fantasy. This is the story of a forgotten queen inspired by real cases from Mughal India, Imperial Russia, and Louis XIV's Versailles, who was forced by her king to share the one thing no royal woman ever imagined giving away, her bed. And not with princes or nobles, but with servants. The king's obsession began quietly. At first, he was fascinated by watching his queen bathe, a ritual of elegance and privacy, carried out behind embroidered veils with female attendants. But one day, he ordered the veils removed. The servants hesitated. The queen protested. But his command was law. He sat in silence as the queen was scrubbed, dried, and dressed, not by ladies-in-waiting, but by young male eunuchs, trained in submission. The queen's eyes stayed lowered. Her lips stayed sealed, but her humiliation had only begun. Soon, the king began inviting his male and female servants into their private chambers at night, not for service, but to watch. At first, they stood by the walls. Then, he made them sit closer. And then, one night, he gave a new order. Let the servant lie beside the queen tonight. I want to see if she notices the difference. The queen froze. The court was built on obedience. Kings were seen as semi-divine, especially in the Mughal and French courts, where disobeying the king wasn't just a personal insult, it was blasphemy. And so, she obeyed. She lay in her own bed, stiff and silent, as a servant was brought in young, confused, and trembling and told to sleep between them. The king didn't touch her that night. He didn't say a word. He just watched. This became a ritual. Each night, a new servant was chosen, some female, some male, some barely out of adolescence. They were made to lie beside the queen, sometimes to touch her, sometimes just to breathe beside her. And every morning, they were dismissed without a word. What began as a voyeuristic thrill for the king turned into a method of psychological control. He wasn't testing the queen's love. He wasn't punishing her infidelity. He was breaking her down, piece, by violating the last sacred space she had, her bed. He would even whisper mockingly in her ear, "If you are my queen, you must also be theirs, for they serve me, and so shall you." The queen never screamed, she never ran. She just faded. Her face, once radiant with pride, became pale and distant. She stopped speaking during court ceremonies. She barely ate. Even her ladies-in-waiting noticed how she began sleeping with her back arched, never touching another body. One night, during a royal banquet, a foreign ambassador remarked, "Your queen walks like she's haunted." To which the king replied, laughing, "Haunted? No, she's just well loved." But the queen's suffering did not go unnoticed by everyone. One of the servants, a boy no older than 17, refused to lie in her bed when called. He claimed illness. The king had him whipped. Later that night, the queen found the boy bleeding. Behind a marble pillar, she sat beside him and whispered, "You are lucky. You still have shame." It was the first time she had spoken to anyone in weeks. The palace began to change. Rumors spread like fire. Some claimed the queen had become insane. Others said she was cursed. But those who served closest to her knew the truth. She was being slowly erased not by poison, not by betrayal, but by deliberate humiliation. This form of punishment, forcing queens to share intimacy with commoners, has deep roots in many royal courts. In 18th century Russia, certain essirs were rumored to gift their queens to stableboys as punishment for political rebellion. In Mughal India, some emperors would assign dancers, eunuchs, and even soldiers to watch over their wives, a phrase that often meant much more than it implied. These acts were not about sex, they were about power, about turning queens into vessels of public dominance, showing that even the most untouchable woman in the kingdom could be made into entertainment for the help. Back in the palace, the queen stopped resisting. She lay still. She smiled at nothing. And in one chilling moment, she whispered to a servant girl as they undressed her, "If I am his, and he is God, then maybe I was never real to begin with." For weeks, she had obeyed. For months, she endured. In one day, she finally stopped blinking. She lay in bed, expression blank, as two servants, one male, one female, undressed beside her. The king watched from his favorite chair, sipping wine, waiting for her to resist, but she didn't. Instead, she smiled. It wasn't the smile of a woman who had accepted her fate. It was the smile of a queen who had decided to play the game. The transformation began slowly. She started choosing the servants herself, selecting them not for the king's pleasure, but for her own amusement. She requested new fabrics for the bed. She asked for incense. Asterisk she began instructing the servants in how to lie beside her, how to speak, how to touch. At first the king was confused, then intrigued. Asterisk then, afraid the game he had created was no longer his. This is what happens when a king forgets that humiliation breeds monsters, and sometimes those monsters wear pearls. Asterisk historical records from 17th century Poland speak of a noblewoman named Queen Barbara Raju, who, after years of being shamed by her in-laws and court officials, began seducing the very soldiers assigned to spy on her. Asterisk each affair ended in sudden promotions for those men, and sudden deaths for those who questioned her. Asterisk some historians say she was mad. Asterisk others believe she had simply learned how to weaponize what was meant to destroy her body, her presence, her myth. Asterisk back in our queen's palace, things began to shift. Asterisk the king noticed that more and more servants refused to participate in the nightly rituals. Asterisk some claimed illness, others fled the palace altogether. Asterisk one night, the king walked into his chamber to find his queen alone, bathed in candlelight, the bed untouched. Asterisk where are they? He asked. She looked up, her voice cold and clear. They serve me now, not you. Asterisk that same week, a royal steward was found dead in the rose garden, poisoned. 3 more vanished before sunrise. No suspects were named. No questions were asked. The queen had stopped being a victim. She had become a black hole, swallowing everyone who entered her orbit. This pattern is not fiction. In the late Ottoman era, Kaksum Sultan, a concubine regent, survived multiple assassination attempts by silently seducing, recruiting, and eliminating anyone who stood in her path. Asterisk she outlived sultans, outmaneuvered viziers, and at one point controlled the throne through bedchamber politics alone. Asterisk our queen had learned something Kaksum understood well. If your body is currency, then spend it until you buy the throne. But not all queens chose revenge. Some simply, shattered. Asterisk there are historical accounts of Queen Maria I of Portugal, whose humiliation at court, including rumors of being watched, undressed, and mocked, led to a complete mental breakdown. Asterisk she began speaking to dead people, refused to bathe, and was eventually locked in a separate wing of the palace, as whispers of her possession spread among the people. Asterisk our queen, too, stood at that fork in the road. Asterisk become the predator, or become the ghost. Some nights, she would recite lullabies to no one. Other nights, she would walk the hallways in silence, trailing red fabric behind her like blood. Asterisk once, a servant found her sitting by a window, her lips blue from cold, whispering, Asterisk the king is the god, but I am the altar, and every night he sacrifices me to himself. Even the king began to lose sleep. He ordered her watched, day and night. Asterisk he banned servants from speaking directly to her. Asterisk he even tried replacing her with younger concubines, but none had the queen's strange allure. Asterisk none of them had survived what she had. Asterisk at court, whispers grew louder. Some said the queen had made a pact with spirits, others believed she had cursed the royal bed, but the most terrifying rumor was this: she is no longer human, she is what the king made her. Asterisk the queen's final move came one evening, during a banquet held in her honor. Asterisk she stood beside the king, wearing a black silk dress embroidered with images of chained men and sleeping women, a quiet insult no one dared to acknowledge. Asterisk when the music stopped, she turned to her husband and whispered loud enough for the entire table to hear. Asterisk tonight, you may lie with me alone, but in your dreams they'll all be there, just like you want it. He choked on his wine. That night, the king dismissed everyone from the chamber. He barred the doors. No one knows what happened behind them, but by morning, he was dead. Asterisk poison, heart failure, guilt. No one could say the queen emerged